hello again to another Aga Calero Reactions together with my husband Eric.
Hello.
There you go. This is our date night on middle of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, because we're recording a lot at once, because we not really no time to record every day or every week. Actually, we got on holidays as well, so I just want to have stuff for you to watch. Today we'll be watching Americans Are Still Tricked by the Biggest Fib in Food History by No Lab Coat Required. By the way, this is Abby. Say hello to Abby. Abby, show yourself. I know you're not comfortable. There you go. That was Abby. I'm gonna put some pictures in there. No worries, guys. Okay, let's just start this. And there you go.
Oh.
I don't think I've ever seen anything from this guy, but...
Yeah.
What boat are you in? Boat 1, you hate butter, you don't have it in your house, you think it's unhealthy.
Love it, butter.
Boat 2, you think it's unhealthy,
It's
but
not
you
unhealthy.
love butter. You just made pancakes with it. Or boat 3, you're just here for the vibes. You might eat butter every now and then,
I don't think
but
butter
you
is
don't know if it's
unhealthy.
good for you or not. Well, this video is the river that all those boats are in, and we're headed upstream
I
to
always
the
thought it was
truth.
high cholesterol.
Because everyone was saying it, but basically I think it's healthier because it's natural. It's just literally cream coming from
Welcome to
cow.
No Code Required, where I out-research your doctor to learn answers to your questions,
better
whether you're
than-
confused or just curious. My name is Johnny.
Let's just stop talking. Let's just listen to the
I've
man.
been waiting to talk about this one. First things first, let's not be tribal about butter. We're talking about butter, like lower your shoulders. Let's approach this with an open mind. I don't know what it is about the butter conversation that turns us into barbarians. You know, people get defensive over what they believe. That's actually never okay. It's like we take everything in about a topic that we think will suffice, and then we just completely shut the door on our conclusion.
Talk to doors.
Never completely shut the door on your conclusion. Always leave it slightly cracked, because that leaves room for new insight. That is science. That is genius. Butter has a bad rep, and most of us don't even know why we think it is bad. Do you know why? Let's go over it.
Why didn't we think of this before, Batman?
Because the margarine,
Hindsight is
guys.
often better than foresight, old chum.
Ah, the 1960s. Back when the talk of the town literally meant just that. The news hit a little different back then. You couldn't just scroll to the next headline. Time magazine was global, and its covers were usually reserved for notable figures or celebrities. So when the issue of January 13, 1961 displayed a man in doctor's clothing shooting a solemn, sharp gaze of grim into the eyes of the reading world, we were prompted to listen up. I can't ask 100 people to go through their phone contacts and expect to find one mug named Ansel Keys. Like, what? That man was named Ansel Keys. See, Ansel was a scientist. He was brilliant and driven. He was a standout pioneer of discovering how disease was connected to nutrition. This was around the time that we figured out smoking might probably be bad for us. McDonald's was fresh on the scene. We just had a world war that sped up modern day food processing as we know it, like, you know, lessening the steps from package to stomach, extending its shelf life. We invented Doritos in this time. America was transitioning, but there was this weird thing that kept happening. Heart attacks. We knew that they were the result of blocked arteries, but we didn't know what blocked the arteries. If you look into the articles of the past, you will realize that specifically middle-aged men in executive positions were suffering from these heart attacks. One man particularly put the nation on high alert: the president. In 1955, the widely beloved 34th President Dwight D. Eisenhower suffered a non-fatal heart attack. America demanded an answer, and we turned to the medical community. And a few years later, we got our answer: saturated fat. Saturated fat is just a word for a type of fat molecule, and butter is considered a saturated fat because it has a high percentage of said molecule. But at the same time, who cares? Because we don't eat molecules, we eat food. People in biblical times were eating butter and didn't have a clue what a molecule was. Back to the Time magazine story. This is what the takeaway is. Ansel Keys absolutely rips apart fat. Anything related to fat. Fat edible fat, dietary fat, fat people, anything fat adjacent, all fat, all bad. The low-fat movement that ran America into drinking skim milk and staying away from marbled meat, it all started right here. Low fat everything, low fat Bluetooth. The story transcribed that cholesterol was the problem. Eat fat, gain cholesterol. Get fat, get heart disease. In that order. That means no more eggs, meat, dairy, or anything fat. Not only were these foods deemed as the problem, but stress, hypertension, smoking, and physical inactivity.
There you go. That's the fourth one. It's the most important in my opinion.
Yeah, it should be number one.
Yeah.
Which a few weeks later released
that's
a
what
report
it is,
basically
just the
echoing
difference.
what was
Wanna stop
reported
here?
in the time.
The blood's not moving fast around.
It's not even that the blood moving fast around or not, but basically I think that the diet, like he said it in the beginning there, that everything was changed after the war. Basically, the way how we made the foods and stuff. One second, I just have to put her on the bed, okay? Because she's gonna get me. Can you hold this for a second? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to get you to the bed. This is really unusual for me. Usually, I just have to roll around. Go to the bed. This is more comfortable for you. You see how much space you have here? Our shadow was already sliding off. No, so I was trying to say is that I think it's just basically everything changed. Like people were working more physically back before Second War, and then after Second War there was more and more of like sitting jobs.
Yep.
That's not literally an inactivity, but not in like exercise, but it's just literally not moving. Like we're sitting down, just watching stuff.
Blame technology.
Yeah, exactly. I see. I just got up with their air
Out
and
of
I'm like
breath.
out of breath.
Yeah, Ansel
So
was
they're
one
working
of the authors. So really, America's getting this advice from one big party.
Whoa!
I kept my opinion out of this video up until this point because here's the kicker. Ansel Keys claims he doesn't know all of the science and mechanisms of cholesterol, but he regards its connection to heart disease as proved. To not fully understand something, but to yet draw a conclusion, that is not science. Now, quickly, I don't want this to be me painting Ansel Keys as a bad guy. A lot of people have done that. There's been books, there's been podcast episodes, blogs, videos, a bunch of people kind of painting him out to be this villain. And after we have learned so much about heart disease and cholesterol, we realized like we were super wrong, like we were way off. Where do we even get this information from? Naturally, we tracked it back and we found Ansel Keys' work. So he became the villain. But there are institutions defending his work as well. It's not easy being the first to something. I'm not choosing a side. It is what it is. But we have to look at what made Ansel Keys say
computer behind
that
him?
eating saturated fat was bad. We gotta rewind a little bit.
Oh.
Before Time
Wider.
magazine, before all the
You stop
hullabaloo, like before this thing blew up, what happened? Italy was enjoying healthy hearts, so much so that an Italian colleague of Keys reached out to him and said, come see for yourself, heart disease is no problem here.
Yeah.
Just like that, Keys is in Italy. He brings his equipment, he's measuring blood pressure and heart stuff all on the streets, he's in the hospitals with it, and he finds virtually no heart issues. After noting how different
It's a
the
diet
Italians
as
ate,
well.
Keys
Olive oil?
started to form the diet
that
heart
too,
theory,
yeah,
the
but-
hypothesis that saturated fat leads to elevated
They eat
cholesterol,
butter too.
which leads to heart disease. He traveled a bit more, analyzed more data, analyzed more blood, and started to find a relationship that supported his theory. In 1955, the World Health Organization hosted a meeting to talk about heart attacks. Ansel felt it was finally his time to share what he had been discovering. And people who knew Keys said he kind of spoke in a blunt way. He was given the floor. With all the confidence in the world, he presented them the diet heart theory. And he was rejected. Borderline mocked. He was shot down in the most professional academic way. You ever been insulted by somebody by words you had to look up after? His evidence was diminished because it was an argument of association. It was all
It's
just
funny.
based on stuff he just kind of seen. Feeling dejected, Ansel promised himself he's gonna prove these snotty nose who fellowshipping folk wrong. He said that, those are his words. Ansel would then go on to start one of the most controversial studies of all time, the 7-country study. United States, Italy, Greece, Yugoslavia, Netherlands, Finland, and Japan. Ansel and his team of researchers got busy. They put in some groundwork in all of these countries. We're talking about analyzing blood pressure, ECGs, anthropometric measurements, cholesterol, the whole shebang. Like the data collection was real. But even more real was his hypothesis. Ansel felt that he had finally collected some legit data to back up what he thought in the first place. And he took it to the streets. Next thing you know, he's on the cover of Time magazine. He gets as celebritized as a dude in a lab coat could get. We're talking Bill Nye the Science Guy, Dexter, Curious George. He had his time to shine, but like I said, as we grew more knowledgeable about the subject, we realized that his study didn't really hold up. In fact, it was torn apart. It was broken down and scrutinized. He was accused of cherry-picking certain countries to support his theory. He was accused of measuring the Greek folk during Lent so that he could skew the results. He was accused of not regarding sugar intake, a whole bunch of stuff. That's where you get into debate with all the other nerds. This nerd, me, Johnny, myself, and you as well. We're gonna talk about the real problem here. Look at you. You're beautiful. All right, now hit the like button. Come on, let's have a mutual relationship. Are you ready for this? You ready? The problem, what is this? The problem with Ansel Keys' study was that it was observational. In scientific study, there is a spectrum of quality when it comes to data. The gold standard yielding the highest form of respectable, legitimate data comes from what we call a randomized controlled trial, or RCT. So in an RCT, if we're measuring diet and heart attacks, we're going to separate people into groups. Group 1, we're going to feed them food we think will cause a heart attack. Group 2, we're going to feed them foods we think will not cause a heart attack. And then group 3, to really balance out the results.
When you do testing like that, you give some people with a medicine,
Yeah,
some people with no medicine, and some people a placebo to see if they say,
but
"Oh
this
yeah, I
is-
got a
Yeah, but this
reaction
is
to
not
this."
medicine, so they have to do kind of different types of foods to
Yeah.
just see how that's gonna work exactly.
Probably cooked with like
Butter.
margarine instead of butter.
Yeah, I don't. This is why I don't like margarine. I did learn at school that basically margarine is just highly processed food.
Yeah, I thought.
There's some margarine is not natural like butter is. Butter been used for thousands of years because literally it's cream that it's churned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all. It comes from the cow. You let the milk stand. The cream comes on the top. You're getting that off. You're churning that. You have butter. You can add salt to it. You can add some herbs and stuff. And that's pretty much all. There's just one ingredient in butter and you have it.
True,
Yeah.
but I grew up with margarine.
Yeah, I
And
know. I grew
was-
up with margarine too because the butter is expensive.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I thought it tastes better. The only problem was when I poured it over popcorn, the popcorn shrivels.
Yeah, because it's proper freaking butter.
No, not from butter, from margarine.
Margarine, yeah,
Yeah.
because margarine it's a chemical process that basically changes the structure of it, and in my opinion, it's. I don't know. I just don't find stuff that was just been introduced like 50 years ago or something like that being really good because it's like what are the how can you check long term
Human trials.
yeah
Put it on
yeah
the
but I'm
market.
just saying like
It's like the
something
vapes.
yeah
You don't know what's going on with it, so you test it on humans. Say, okay, go
yeah,
and test
but
it.
how
people.
how could you gonna do a long term thing on a long term results gonna be that and that if you don't have enough time to actually test it?
Well, that is a test.
Yeah.
You put it on the market. The kids buy it. They smoke it up
Yeah.
and see what happens in 50 years. You know?
Okay. And in 50 years, they're like, oh, the vaping was actually bad.
Yeah. Well, they're already saying it's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, people are
yeah.
smoking on the bus and like, dude, knock it off.
We're not going to give them anything. You
Sorry,
adjust
do
for
you want to say something else?
No, that's it.
Okay.
variables like age and sex, and boom, you got your results. You can even make that more rigorous by making the participants or even the researchers blind to what they're testing. You can even throw in a placebo effect somewhere. The point is that there is intervention. Observational studies like that. You go in, make your measurements, observe, then make some more. Observational studies are still legit science, and that's actually how we start things off. We make an observation, we make a guess, and then we test it. But at the very best, observational studies can form a hypothesis. You were taught this in middle school, an educated guess. You can't form a conclusion, let alone tell Time magazine about the results you found in a study where you didn't intervene. You ain't tested none yet. The reason we have low-fat anything in the grocery store to this day is because of this 7 countries observational study. We observed that ice cream sales go up in the summer, but so does horrendous acts. Does one cause the other? I would hope not. You can't prove cause and effect through observation alone. Ladies and gentlemen, now for the part you've all been waiting for. It's time for the truth about saturated fat and butter. Meta-analysis on saturated fat. 45 studies analyzed, 347,000 plus participant total. Conclusion? No solid evidence that dietary saturated fat is associated with an increased risk of a heart attack. This was going to be the study that kicked off a montage of me listing a bunch of other studies with similar findings. Bam, case closed. But I had to look a little closer. That study garnered a response from other scientists who believed that the conclusion that they drew was inaccurate because of an over-adjustment. An over-adjustment can skew the results toward their bias in order to appease their hypothesis. In other words, scientists called them out for cheating the system.
You have been cheated and lied to.
Not only that, but one of the authors had a connection with a dairy institution, so there could be bias. Measuring the effects of saturated fat is inherently difficult. Not only that, but all studies aren't using the same type of saturated fat, and there's levels of quality as well. Every single study I come across hardly ever mentions the quality of the saturated fat. And even less studies directly compare the quality of butter, but I found one, and it's a good one. A controlled, double-blind, randomized intervention study The researchers weighed up free-roaming cows fed on grass-fed diet against those raised in conventional standards, raised mostly indoors on corn silage, wheat barley silage, and a bunch of other stuff.
Make a lot of
Just so
things
we're
as well, I
clear,
guess.
cows, if it wasn't for human intervention, would probably eat about 90% grass. They wouldn't eat corn or grain. Definitely not corn. They can't even reach the top of the stalk, so they're not designed to. We really don't know all the things that conventional farmers are putting into these feeds. These are just the things that
Like
they
those
have
free-range
shared
chickens
with us.
in like a
Some
cage that
farmers
big?
feed their cows straight candy.
You began to buy secondhand candy.
It has a higher ratio of fat than actually feeding straight corn. Lots of happy cattle.
Feeding the cows
Just like
candy?
humans, cows are what they eat. And if we think
Yeah.
for 1 second that a
Dude.
stressed out cow fed candy is going to produce the same quality butter as a grass fed free roaming cow, then we tripping. The study comparing the two groups of cows found major differences in their butter. Conventional butter has an overall higher content of saturated fat than grass-fed butter. Conventional butter has 17% less omega-9 acid, 33% less omega-3 acid, and the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is 45% higher than grass-fed butter. Ooh. Now, around here, like I said, we don't eat molecules, we eat food. So,
Black
all
ice,
the
huh?
omega talk, it can go a little deep. I actually made a separate video on that you can check out in the description. For now, we have to understand that these are two of the same foods, but nutritionally are like night and day. The advice was to replace butter with unsaturated fats, and trust me, we've done that. Vegetable oil is an umbrella term for all the oils we consume in our foods: soybean oil, sunflower oil, peanut oil, canola oil, and so on. These oils are degraded basically the instant humans touch them. We chemically treat them, which we winterize them, deodorize them, degum them, neutralize them, bleach them. I don't want anything to do with anything that's been through that kind of trauma. After these oils are produced, they're thrown into basically every packaged food you see in the grocery stores and in the gas stations. I'm not kidding. Check the label. They're processed to the point to where they are a fraction of what they once were, and that comes with side effects. I used to be a busboy. I was underpaid and poorly treated. Every night I went home with a bad attitude and a wet lap because of all the dishes I washed. I imagine this is how our cells feel when we give them these oils. This is the big question though. Johnny, why do we put these oils in our food? It's hard to consume or even produce foods without some form of fat. We need it for texture, flavor, to bind ingredients, so on and so on. Of course,
Like sunflower oil and like the vegetable oil here, yeah? It's 100% rapeseed oil. So as far as I understand, it's just, you know, like squished and thing on the oil, like with the olive oil. It's
Yeah.
just the same process. So I don't know.
Was it
I never heard about all the processes
heated
he's talking
to
about.
create the moisture in there?
I don't think there's heated. It's just depending. It's like, let's say there's rapeseed oil is very popular in Poland because we have a lot of rape seeds growing in the fields and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And basically, there's a company that it's very popular, but they basically advertising themselves as a first, like a virgin, like you have 100% virgin olive oil. So it's basically been just, you know, I don't know, how do you say that? That oil is what? Just like extracted from the olive
Yeah,
oils, yeah? So it's just extracted just once. That's what that oil is in those bottles. So because you can, after that you have some leftovers and you can extract that again, and then you can extract it again. That's when it's not virgin olive oil. If you use that extra, the leftovers after the first processing for the oil, I think that's what it is. I'm not actually 100% sure, but you know.
It's for another video.
Yeah, but this is first time I'm gonna hear about it, but I kind of believe him as well. That's all that stuff it's processed because it will last a long time.
big corporations aren't necessarily concerned about which oil does the trick, as long as it's cheap, because their main concern is their bottom line.
Yeah.
We were already given natural
If
fats
people
from
buy
the
it,
earth,
who cares how
but
it's
we
made?
developed a system that Frankenstein them. We aren't eating the same butter our great-great-great-grandparents ate, and they sure wouldn't be eating no man-made margarine.
Wow, this is garbage.
Fatty acids are special puzzle pieces that the body cannot live without. The brain is 60% fat, and our cell membranes are 50% fat. We need fat to absorb certain vitamins, A, D, E, and K. We need saturated fat, monounsaturated
Yeah, I
fat,
could never understand people that they just don't have
polyunsaturated
any
fat,
fat in their
and
diet.
high-quality butter
It's so
provides
unhealthy.
a vast array of them all. We need FAT. All right, folks, time for another episode of Johnny. Tell me the benefits of grass-fed butter, please. I'm your host, Johnny, and let's get into it. It's one of the only places you can get K2, a vitamin responsible for making sure calcium ends up in the right spots and not the wrong ones. It is also rich in the vitamin that is special and famous for eyesight. But vitamin A is also important for the
Which
immune
cartoon is that?
system, so you don't get sick of these
I
people.
remember that watching.
It
It's
has
really kind of
DLA,
stupid,
MCT,
but
and
it's Cartoon Network, I
omega-3. We're
think.
talking a fortified heart, a more efficient metabolism, and a sharper brain so you can come up with better comebacks when somebody disrespects you. Being told to avoid saturated fat is lazy advice, as well as being told to sit up straight. No kidding, I made a video on that and it's coming up on the screen. I'm gonna get up out y'all way.
Okay. That was funny and pretty informative. What did you think about it?
It was good.
Yeah,
We should watch more of this guy
yeah, we should. Maybe next time.
next time.
Of course. Should check out what he has. Definitely get my subscription.
I eat too much butter. Like yesterday, I had 4 pieces of bread with the
A lot of butter.
yeah,
Yes.
with what you made yesterday, and I just piled that butter on.
Mhm.
It was thick. I was able to squish it around in my mouth. But yeah, okay. Let's not use too much butter or sugar or salt.
Or this or that and this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't drink soda.
So just go on diet. Nah.
Eat healthy.
Nah. That's not happening in this house.
I couldn't live like that.
No. You'll have to.
So I'll
move-
die from saturated fat. Get it? I couldn't live like that.
No,
A healthy diet.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna die. If you like that joke, leave a like.
Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow, and you see Eric next week, next Friday. Bye.
See ya.